Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Greater Good Radio. I'm Bob Kosh. We are broadcasting from WOR, 710 AM. We are the voice of New York. It is wonderful to have you today. I must ask everyone if you have a moment. Go to www.greatergoodmediallc.com. Not sure if you know this, but you are more than welcome to leave comments on the website about the program, offer up any content, things that we may need to know, things that you may want to hear on the air. That said, today is Saturday. Today is the 24th of July, and we will be heading up to Easton, Connecticut for a concert event for Homes for the Brave. You've heard us speak of this actually the past couple of weeks. We are desperately trying to get folks to, if you have the wherewithal, send them a few bucks. They are doing some unbelievably good things for veterans who are home trying to reintegrate, which is a bit of a challenge. Unfortunately, some of our veterans, our heroes, remain homeless, and that just cannot happen in our society. So we're going to have a concert event. Once again, the bands are Goldust, School of Rock, and I will be performing a couple of songs. My one song, 343, which celebrates the spirit of the firefighters we lost on 9/11, along with everyone we lost that day, and a song I wrote for my two sons entitled We Need to Talk. And that leads us to our very first talented guest by the name of Rose Luczaj. Rose is a keyboardist, and she has been performing with School of Rock, and we're very fortunate to have her on, especially since she's going to be playing in the next few hours. Rose, thanks a lot for being on Greater Good Radio.
Thank you for having me.
I want you to tell our audience where you're from, what you're doing, especially as it relates to your band, and the event for today.
So I'm Rose. I'm from Fairfield, Connecticut, and I am part of the School of Rock Fairfield House Band, which is considered the varsity group of the School of Rock Fairfield. Basically, what School of Rock is it's a rock music performance program for kids ages 7 to 18, and then we also have an adult program. And after a certain amount of seasons, you can be invited to audition for the house band, which consists of around the top 20 musicians in the school. And we do gigs around the state, mostly around the county. And the event that we're playing today is a fundraiser for Homes for the Brave. We have been invited to play, very gratefully, by Mr. Lasky, and he is fundraising for Homes for the Brave today, and we're going to play alongside his band, so we're all really excited.
Outstanding. Now, do you get to play out quite a bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long year of not playing that many gigs, but now that we're getting back into it this summer, we've had gigs lined up almost every weekend. We've played in a lot of different places, from the Sono Collection in Norwalk to private parties to Bryac, like different scale events for different types of audiences. So it's all about getting us experience in the music realm.
What is your part in the band? What do you do?
So as a senior member of house band, I am a keyboardist. I mean, that's really my only instrument. Sometimes I'll help out and sing backup vocals if I'm called on to do it. But really, we had a big changeover in house band, and we actually have 17 new students in the house band that just joined house band over the past year. So it was a big transition for us, but it was a great transition. And being one of the members who has been here a little longer than the others, I helped to kind of guide that and help people understand what the values and reputation house band has to uphold.
That's great. I am absolutely amazed. I had no idea that you guys had that many members in the band. Give me some of the, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but give me some of the playlist for later today that you're going to do.
Well, I think I'm going to leave the opener to be determined, or to be experienced, I guess.
Sure.
But we're playing anything from Rush to the Bee Gees, to the Commodores. I know we have, if you don't mind, I'm going to pull it up on my phone. I have
Yeah. I just can't believe the range that you guys have. So please, tell me.
Yeah, so I mean, with a large rotating band, we are able to cover a lot of material. We're going to be playing Good Times, Bad Times by Led Zeppelin. That's always a crowd pleaser. We'll be playing Rio by Duran Duran, and most likely Virtual Insanity by Jamiroquai. And then we have more, harder rock songs such as In Bloom and Beautiful Disaster. We kind of jump all over the rock spectrum, but we have a very talented group that is committed to putting on a great show. So
my biggest question, who's going to do the vocals for the Zeppelin song?
That will be one of the other senior members. She's actually only going to be a freshman in high school, but she has been in house band for a while. Her name is Natalie, and she's extremely talented. So
I cannot wait to hear. In my younger days, I could do that. I'm not sure if that would happen right about now. Hey, Rose, thank you so much for being on the program, and I will see you later today up at the Barn in Easton, Connecticut.
Thank you so much for having me.
No one can ever argue that we Americans owe a great debt to our veterans. Re-entry for some of our heroes is a challenge. Homes for the Brave are there to help. Join us on July 24th for a special concert event at the Barn featuring local artists Gold Dust and School of Rock. Located at 399 Center Street, Easton, Connecticut, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Your participation here will pay tribute to all who have served in the military. For more information, visit us at www.homesforthebrave.org or call 203-338-0669. Starting a business or advancing your platform is no walk in the park. The challenges of today's marketplace should be navigated by those who know its ups and downs. Morgan Taylor has the skill set to provide any brand, organization, or company with guidance for growth. Morgan Taylor Marketing offers web development and creative services for business owners and entrepreneurs. You can contact Morgan at morgantaylormarketing.com or call her at 973-821-3322. Okay, everybody, it has been a while. When was the last time you saw a Broadway show? Yeah, it's been quite some time. Well, if you're channeling your inner Liza Minnelli, this is really going to be a treat for you. Our next guest is Robin Newman. Robin is a lifelong theater lover and freelance writer. She's blogged regularly about theater, shows, and personalities, and has written for TDF Stages, the Huffington Post, New York Magazine, and City Guide. Robin was associate producer of Motherhood Out Loud at Primary Stages and was involved in the marketing efforts, including the orchestration of Mom Blogger Night and the creation of Motherhood Out Loud Award, reported by BroadwayWorld.com. She is a supporter of Page 73, New York, the Actors Fund, and the Lilly Awards, and actually conceived or led a panel entitled From the Page to the Stage. Robin authored the books How to Meet a Mensch in New York and How to Marry a Mensch. A mensch is a decent, responsible person, and this is currently being developed into what's going to be a Broadway play. She is a Tony Award nominee, and there's much more. Robin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Robin, I have to say I am incredibly impressed on what you have achieved. And I would like you to tell our listeners what you do or the many things that you do.
I do wear an array of hats. That is true. And there is a link between them, though it might not seem that way at first glance.
Uh-huh.
I'm an author of 2 dating books, How to Meet a Mensch in New York. A mensch is a decent, responsible person, and How to Marry a Mensch. And from those books, I started working as a love coach for singles, offering personalized advice. And I also do a lot of speaking engagements. And then I became a mom. And when I became a mom, I created an organization called motherhoodlater.com. And it's for women and men who became parents at age 35 or over. And the point is to offer support and resources and camaraderie. And I've started doing free Zoom chats during the pandemic, which has brought together moms worldwide. And we actually have in-person chapters. So that's been pretty incredible, very fulfilling.
Yep.
And then from all of that, I've made my way into the theater industry, and I'm a Tony-nominated Broadway producer. And I'm currently in early development on a musical inspired by my books. And I'm so excited because I feel like the world needs all the mensches we can get. And if we can bring that message home through a musical that entertains and is heartfelt, I feel like my work will be done. Not really, but.
Well, let me circle back to what you do with moms. And I want to know, is there, do you have a lot of communication with moms who are younger? Because you had stated that you became a mom a little later in life. Do you see any difference, benefits, drawbacks, anything with respect to age and motherhood?
Yes, I do. And that's a really important question, because one of the reasons I founded Motherhood Later Than Sooner, that's the full name, is because I felt judgment. And there is judgment around being a later in life mom, as common as it is when you're out there in the trenches, so to speak, which I was in the playground with my son, trying to meet other moms. I was never one who felt overly conscious of age all these years, but suddenly I found myself in a place where age did feel different. I had lost my mom. I feel like I had lived more, certainly had more life experience that was gratifying to me. Hopefully I was sweating the small stuff a little less than some younger moms. And it felt important to be with peers. And I was very surprised that that didn't exist, essentially. And I launched it initially in New York, which is where I live. And we recently launched a chapter in Nigeria.
Wow.
So, who knew this would take off like gangbusters? But there's strength in numbers, Bob. And it feels really important to support each other as best we can.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I want to fast forward to Broadway, because there is really so much to talk about after the pandemic, the entire shutdown. And you are just, boots on the ground. This is very big part of who you are, and I understand that. And my first real question is, what do you see now that Broadway has told us that they're coming back? How is it coming back?
Very carefully. There's a high consciousness of safety. Certainly the unions have protocols that are required for all performers, which is wonderful, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to feel safe, whether you're on the stage, behind the stage, or in front of the stage, enjoying the experience. I think on the basis of shows and what it's going to look like, it really is a little individual. It depends on how each show wants to handle it. And I think it's a little bit of a watch and wait to see how things pan out. given that there is the new variant now, and hopefully that won't become a major issue, but we don't really know. So that could impact the requirements in terms of, will people have to show vaccination cards? Will they have to wear masks?
Yeah.
So I don't know that all of that is completely clear yet, but I do know that Broadway and off Broadway, any show for that matter, wants to safeguard everyone and will do their best to do the right thing.
Okay. And now I want to segue into, and I know that there are just dozens and dozens and dozens of people who want to know, how do you get involved in a Broadway production?
Well, you can talk with someone like me. I'm happy to field any inquiries. Seriously, a lot of people reach out to me, and I'm happy to explain how I got involved, and certainly happy to share about projects that I'm working on. I am, aside from my musical with my producing partner, I'm on 2 other forthcoming Broadway musicals. One is The Nanny, inspired by the TV show, which is going to be like comfort food on stage.
Yeah.
And the other is A Face in the Crowd, which is inspired by the iconic film that starred Andy Griffith, and the music is being written by Elvis Costello. So if there's any Elvis Costello fans, this is the thing for you, and I'm happy to talk to anybody. But seriously, that is how you get involved, because once you decide that it is something you think you want to do, then you need to try to network to the best of your ability and get in the room with people like me. And you start as an investor, and that is how I began. And because that gives you entree to be in that room to support the show that you've chosen to be part of. Sure. And then you start to meet people at that point. And then it just leads to other opportunities. And it feels like a hard thing to penetrate, to get that. But it's not necessarily, if you can have a conversation, again, with someone like me or anyone you might know who's in the industry. Clubhouse is kind of a cool app that some people are doing now, the audio app. But there's a lot of theater conversation on there and a chance to connect with people. And actually on Facebook, I have a group called Lifelong Theater Lovers and Supporters. And I'm happy to have anyone join us there, whether you're in the industry or not. Right. And I share all kinds of industry news. And that's a great way to meet people too.
And Robin, we've had conversation in the past, and I was just completely intrigued with what it really takes on a production level. Can you give us a little tutorial on, like we had discussed, spaces to practice, things like that?
Yeah.
Just throw the ball your way here.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, we're in early development on a musical inspired by my book, How to Marry a Mensch. And as a lead producer on that's my first lead producing gig. We're doing everything from, where we're at right now is we actually just finished hiring our creative team. So we're so excited. We've had our composer lyricist for a while. We just hired the book writer like a week ago. We have our director, we have our general management team, we have our attorney. So that's the first step for production development, is having those pieces together. And now they're at the phase of writing a treatment, which is like the initial outline, where you think the
storyboard almost.
Yeah, kind of. So that's about a 4-month process. And then assuming that we approve it and we're all good to go and all excited, then there's another 6 months to write the whole shebang. And it can be sooner depending on their writing path, but that's like the approximate timing. And then at that point, to your question, what happens is you start looking into readings and workshops. And usually it's like an initial table read that's intimate and closed. But then ultimately, yes, when you start to open it up to potential investors or co-producers or people who might want to get involved, you do need to look for those spaces. And that's, you and I were talking about the concern that I had around that. It's not just the theaters that want to do things safely. It's those it's those venues as well. And many of those venues are on the more cozy side, let's put it that way. Sure. But I have heard good things. I have heard there's a consciousness of air filtration and certain safeguards around those. And also the rehearsal spaces. because all the shows that are returning, hopefully in the fall and beyond, are going through that now, or they're already back in rehearsals. And I was talking to someone last week who was rehearsing for a show, and I asked him what that was looking like and how it was going. And he said he felt really good about it.
So it is your production that you're involved with now. Is this going to be a musical?
Oh, yeah, it's a musical. Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
Okay. I would like to get an understanding on the difference, to go back and revisit what we spoke about just briefly, a real musical and, something that is, I'm going to say, more theatrical. And remember, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I've been to Broadway, love live entertainment. So if hopefully you can give us some commentary there.
Well, I think you're referring to a musical versus a straight play.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Yep. So, for us, I respect straight plays as well and have enjoyed them, but I've always been kind of a musical gal. Mm-hmm. So, for us, the project that we envision is around 90, 100 minutes through story, no intermission, which I think you're going to maybe see more of that coming out of the pandemic as well, because I think shows do have a consciousness of length and intermission and what that would look like, because it does invite more mingling possibility. Yeah. So we've always been, we were actually ahead of the pack in that sense, because that was always our intent to do that. And our vision is off Broadway and beyond. If it's meant to be on Broadway, we're totally open to that. Mm-hmm. But a lot of shows, don't have to be on Broadway to succeed. We're very interested in licensing. It's already being tracked by one of the big publishing houses in theater. So that's exciting. It feels very commercial in nature. And we'll start somewhere outside New York first. I think which is the key in this realm as well, Bob, is that not all productions have to be in New York or even play in New York for a long time to succeed. You can have a major life on the road or regionally. And I think in terms of theater, there's some really strong regional markets, and that's going to look different than New York as well. Yeah. So depending on where you are, there might be theaters that are opening even sooner and might be even doing better with the pandemic. New York's doing pretty good, but we'll see what the future brings. But it's just something to keep in mind for anyone who's developing. Right. It's New York is not the be all and end all, although I know it feels that way.
Okay, and that that's a really good that's a wonderful explanation. But I am, as we're talking, in my head, I've got to ask, where, other than New York, if someone does have a production they'd like to move forward with, mm-hmm. are they looking first to Minnesota? Are they looking down in Florida? What would be if for the amateur, for a guy like me, I want to start something, and I've got a very limited budget, but I just want to test it, see what it looks like on stage. Where do I go?
There is so many choices. I want to mention also that London is an option too. It costs a lot. Yeah, it's a lot less expensive in London to produce than it is in New York. Now, New York is like the top dollar place. Australia is also a very fertile ground for producing and also a bit less expensive. Okay. Regionally, in terms of the United States, Florida, which we mentioned, actually is a great market. And there are some new theaters coming into Florida as well. So I would definitely look at that. I know we're going to look at Florida for Mensch, if that makes sense. Yep. There's also there's theaters like Goodspeed, there's Paper Mill. These are all regional. Dallas is a really cool market for theater. There's some really strong accredited theaters, La Jolla in California. But most shows, if not all, don't start on Broadway. Really nothing it's pretty rare for a show to start there, because you need to do your due diligence and make sure that it's Broadway worthy, so to speak. And a big trend right now as well is concept albums. A lot of shows are doing that. I'm on the board of New York Theater Barn, which I joined during the pandemic, and it's a nonprofit that helps cultivate new musicals. Mm-hmm. And also on the board with me is Van Deen, who's the head of Broadway Records. And New York Theater Barn actually launched an imprint under Broadway Records during the pandemic. And this is really important because it's another way for shows to get exposure. And if you can build an audience and interest in the show that you're developing prior to it hitting the stage, you already get those followers. You build that platform, and it's like that expression, you create it and they will come.
Yep.
Well, sometimes it starts in the virtual world and the Spotify's of the world, or the TikToks, or whatever it is. And then people flock to actually see it when you're on stage.
Robin, you are a cornucopia of just fantastic, informative stuff that people, this was a great conversation. Please tell our listeners where they can find you.
Several places. I have a website, motherhoodlater, later.com. I also have a website, lovecoach.com, which relates to my book and personal coaching. Certainly you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the usual social media spots. And again, join my group, Lifelong Theater Lovers and Supporters on Facebook. I'd be happy to have anyone there.
Great. Robin, thank you so much for being on Greater Good Radio.
Oh, it was terrific, Bob. Thank you again for having me, and regards to all your listeners.
You're the best. The American spirit, its ingenuity, desire, pride, and the chance to achieve your dreams. Have you ever given any real thought about where we would be without the American farmer? Have you ever really asked yourself that question at the dinner table while you're eating with your family? Ben Moore had a vision when he started the Ugly Company. After Ben served as an infantryman in the United States Army, he returned to farming and decided to do something about the waste of perfectly good fruit deemed unmarketable due to nothing more than a blemish or its shape. Thousands of truckloads of fruit are thrown out in California every year. The Ugly Company has taken a giant step in addressing food insecurity. The Ugly Company prevents food waste by upcycling fruit and transforming it into healthy dried fruit snacks. When you order from the Ugly Company, you're getting the best that this Kingsburg, California farming company has to offer. Ugly never looks so pretty. Go to www.theugly.company to order online for home delivery and learn more about these healthy, delicious products. You're listening to Greater Good Radio with Bob Kosh on WOR 710 AM. We are the voice of New York. Life is full of peaks and valleys, and between the two, some of those things may have created financial setbacks. You do not have to suffer the anxiety of how to get out of a situation you didn't plan. You don't have to go it alone. The law offices of Edward Hanratty specializes in debt relief, bankruptcy protection, challenging student loans, and mortgage modifications. The law provides us with certain protection, and it's something you should take advantage of when you need it. Call 732-866-6655 or visit their website at www.centralnewjerseybankruptcylawyer.com. Experience and confidence is what the law offices of Edward Hanratty has been providing since 1997. Representation you can trust. Call them today or visit our offices at 80 Court Street, Freehold, New Jersey. There's been so much in the news over the past few years, really, about policing, about what community thinks of police. You've got people on both sides. You've got pro supporters for police. You have got people want to defund the police. There's, it just runs the gamut. Our next guest, Jonathan Galui, is currently in development of a program in a company called the Blue Guardian Network. This interview is really important that you listen to what Jonathan has to say. He is an ex-officer. He's got just tons of experience and talks about the emotion of being a law enforcement official. I'm sure no one who has ever called the police and really needed someone to get to their house to get involved in a situation or protect property or life, did they ever think of, I wonder if this cop is having a bad day? Is he going through a divorce? Is he going through this, that, the other? And this is something that we really have to understand. If policing is going to remain in the United States, which, dear God, we need police, this is something that really its time has come. So I want to welcome Jonathan to the show. Jonathan, thanks so much for being on Greater Good Radio.
Robert, thanks for having me. What an honor. I appreciate it.
I would like to have you tell our listeners who you are, what you're doing, and moreover, what you're advancing.
Thanks. My name is Jonathan Galui. I'm just a love-based guy. I want to see humanity just fall in love with each other. And I'm a single father of 2 kids that light up my life and are my biggest teachers. They show me all my blind spots. And I've done a lot in life. I was a college athlete. Then I went the corporate route. I became a cop for about 5 years. Then I owned my own business as a CrossFit owner. And that led me to Blue Guardian Network. Blue Guardian Network is in the creation, and what it is going to be, it's going to be a platform where our men and women in uniform can come in a safe, trusting, confidential environment to just be themselves. And where we can pour in, former police officers can pour in to the person in the uniform. So help them develop their love, maybe redefine some things that are programmed a little bit incorrectly, and really truly find their true nature as a officer, but more importantly as a husband, a wife, a father, a brother, sister, uncle, you name it.
Okay. And you know what? I admire what you're doing. There has been so much in the media over the past few years with people in law enforcement committing suicide, and I'm not going to say accepting help, but from your own experience, what have you witnessed when, a law enforcement officer is in trouble? Do they hold back? Do they, tell us what you've experienced.
Yeah, there's, there's really nothing out there that gives the officer the freedom or the comfort to really deal with some of the traumas that they either have or witness. Mm-hmm. Speaking from experience, it was hard to go to a peer to tell them that you were struggling with your relationship with your wife.
Right.
It's not easy. And so we all want to provide that opportunity for these police officers, because what I see is if we can make like love-based police officers, mm-hmm. then they're going to change the world, right? Sure. They're going to be changing the communities that they're in. And if we don't provide them the opportunity to be human and treat them like human beings, then we're dropping the ball.
Yeah.
And this goes into all aspects of life, right? It's not just police officers. That's just the path that I chose to go down, because anybody that's willing to put their life on the line, regardless whether you're military or a police officer or just a citizen in general, seeing something that's not right happen in society, like that's tough. And they need the chance to release that and be heard and understood and then heal from that.
Now, you had mentioned what you and I have had a couple of conversations now, and you are of the opinion correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of this has to do with possibly the training of an officer, what he or she is really tasked to do, whether they're on duty or off duty, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of like a mindset, right? It's kind of like a lot of the training, and I've got my personal experience and just people I've talked to, so this isn't a one size fits all. You can't lump every police department or every police officer into any specific box.
Right.
So I want to make that clear, because some officers, don't have any of these issues. Others do, right? Because some of them come from a military background. Yep. And they've been programmed by the military, right? Others don't. Others come right out of high school because dad was a police officer or whatnot. Right. And so what my experience is the practical application of education and training for police officers when it comes to doing the job is spot on. And that's everything that has been developed over the years.
Right.
What we have failed to do is the behind the scenes efforts of making sure we're taking care of them and making sure that, their mental health is in the right position to then go out into the job and do the best job that they can.
Right.
And so it's like, if you take a fishbowl and you fill it with soda, right, with Coca-Cola, it's going to be really hard to see to the edges. Yeah. But if you fill it with water, right, you're going to be able to see out. And that's the same general concept on the mental health of the police officer.
And I want to ask you specifically, not to interrupt your train of thought, but that Coca-Cola image was fantastic. And I think it's a great segue here to talk about, I want to get your opinion on police dealing with people who have mental health issues. I have my own thought process on that. I really believe that there are a lot of people who have mental health issues who are still very dangerous individuals. So now, where do we go? I mean, guy's got a knife, he's in an apartment, maybe it's a hostage type situation. You're not going to call a psychiatrist, but would it be helpful to have someone else there? I mean, what is your thought process on this?
So my thought process goes to the police officer, right? I'm focused on the police officer, and where I go is if that police officer is mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally healthy, then he's going to be able to interact with that situation a little bit better than the guy who's struggling, at home or has been struggling for years, right? And so our police officers still have to do their job, right? Yeah. There are evils of this world and they're not going to go away. And so if you understand and you have clarity on what mental health is, right? But then also you aren't struggling from that for yourself, right? You're going to be more empathetic, more compassionate to that situation, right? Where maybe a one word doesn't trigger an incident to get worse, right? And because you are centered, you are balanced, you are present as that police officer, right? It just stays calmer a little bit longer, which then all of a sudden you have the breakthrough, right? So you're a police officer, you're gonna get into a fight. It's gonna happen. There's no way to stop it, right? And I've had this conversation with many people about de-escalation, right? So what we have to understand is you have to escalate based off of the situation as a police officer. It's a matter of life and death. The problem is we need to de-escalate it just as quick, right? So the question is do you have to punch someone 3 times as opposed to punching them 1 time, right? And if you have to punch someone, if you're mentally clear, then that punch is justified.
Sure.
But if you've got, bitterness or resentfulness, not even from what's going on, possibly from something at home, right? Or from your past, right? you might not even be able to stop yourself from punching him 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm coming from. Now, after this situation is taken care of, right, then yes, absolutely, right? There should be someone, and there are programs, peer-to-peer programs for the officers to talk to and things like that.
Right.
Again, but that's the practical application from that situation or encounter, right? What happens about 3 months down the road when he's still or she is still struggling, and based off of what they've gone through, right, there's nowhere for them to go. So for example, you see a car accident and you see a child that represents your own child in that car dead.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to hide that pain.
Yeah.
You are going to, because it's hard. That's traumatizing.
Sure.
6 months down the road, if that pain is still there, and there's a good chance that it will be,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. You're just burying it.
You're burying it.
Yeah.
You're burying it, right? But then if you go to your peer-to-peer support system or you go to your EAP system, right, and you disclose how much of a struggle this is,
Right.
they can put you on desk duty,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, you're punishing me for doing my job and being a human being.
Right.
You're asking police officers to deal with the traumas of the world because those people can't deal with their own traumas.
We are all vulnerable. And that is the key word here. Once again, that translates to emotion. And that's where I want to jump for a minute because, you and I are men. We have testosterone flowing through our body. And, it's a tricky thing. You can be a civilian in a deli, some guy cuts in front of you, all of a sudden, bango, you're thinking, hey, you just insulted me. There's a trigger. Now, whether you are a police officer or, Joe the plumber, there are going to be altercations. There are going to be, like you just said, escalation. And it's, as an officer of the law, as this is escalating, and you just really brought that out quite more than adequately just a couple of minutes ago. What is there training? Is there something that hopefully comes back in your head in a situation where it's going to get violent that you can say to yourself, I've got to back off on this a little bit. Is there some kind of mechanism that because it's not just a natural human component. Once it's go time, it's very difficult to come back off of that. So in a situation, what would you tell or advise officers in a situation like that? What do you do?
That's what Blue Guardian Network is exactly designed for, right? Because again, I can't speak into every police officer. I don't know what's going on with their financial situation, right? Yep. With their home life. So there's not one size fits all solution.
Right.
But what I can say and what I will stick to, and this is for all of humanity, right? If you're willing to look inside at yourself and accept that you got some work to do, and you can come to a peace and an internal state for yourself when you get put into that situation, however you handle it,
right,
you'll handle it, right? So some people might have the gift of gab, right? Robert, you're a jokester, right?
Oh, stop.
So perfect example. If you had a uniform on, right, you would probably venture more towards your identity of humor, right, and connecting with that situation in a humorous way. right? Other people are very analytical, right? So they might speak from a more analytical standpoint, right? So this is, again, what training is being presented, right? The mental health training for a police officer, right, is not provided because they are having to train within the department for the interactions of the world. Blue Guardian is going to say, okay, while you're at home, if you have this struggle, let's get rid of it. So when you get put in that situation, you're calm, you're internal peace, right? You don't put off that persona of the stigma of you're angry, right? Or you're upset, right? One of the hardest things that I dealt with was the uniform, right? They didn't want to move our equipment off our belt and put it on our upper body because it looked too intimidating. Okay. And it was really interesting. But now fast forward, you know what? It's the person inside. If the police officers are smiling, if they're good inside, that uniform doesn't matter because your glow, your energy goes out and above, right? The traumas of society and the system keep that suppressed.
Right.
And that's what I want to release. Is it perfect? No, but I want to keep that internal officer, right, at peace.
Right.
So that they can do their job in the highest, loving, honorable, compassionate way possible.
Sure. And everything you're saying, Jonathan, deals with vision, but unfortunately, in a situation like that, you've got to have vision and realize consequence, danger, all inside of under 3 seconds. And to evaluate the person where you are responding to a particular call. And once again, I've heard so many times from so many officers about, domestic calls and how they just go god awfully wrong. And what you're saying makes so much sense and has a tremendous component of logic because once again, I believe, because I've been on the other side of this coin, as you know, is that it's all about relatability. If you're, and that's what I want to hear from you.
So can I get personal?
Yeah.
All right, and I'm going to get vulnerable here, right? I'm really going to just be honest with you. I'm divorced, right? My divorce got ugly.
Sure.
It got real ugly. It wasn't violent or anything like that, but this was after I was a police officer, so I had been out for a while, and I actually called the police department to my house for something that was going on. And the gentleman that showed up, there were two. One was a field training officer and one was a rookie. Okay. Now this rookie, and not his issue, right? Like it wasn't his fault, but what he said, because he was a young kid who clearly wasn't married, who clearly didn't have kids, right? Could have made that situation a whole heck of a lot worse, right? Because I was cut from that cloth, okay? I didn't escalate it.
You didn't take it to a 10.
But the kid could not relate to me. How am I going to listen to a 21, 22, 23-year-old kid who doesn't know the domestic side of having financial issues with children and with a spouse and with a mother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
And I finally got the sergeant who was the field training officer, and I told him, I said, look, this is my experience. This is my background, right? And if you don't step in and take control of this situation, right, it's not going to go good.
Yeah.
Because if I wasn't trained the way I was trained, this would have gone really bad, right? Because the young man didn't do anything wrong. He just didn't know.
Right.
He didn't know. He was saying things like, "You're instigating the situation." And it's like, "Oh, calm down here. She's drunk, right?" Which she's allowed to be. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm the one that was sober And what I'm getting at is you mentioned relatability.
Yeah.
We can't expect these, we have to be smart. My dad always told me, work smart, not hard.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is part of these situations that are so dynamic and so fluid and so quick that can go so wrong so quick.
Yeah.
And that officer, my heart goes out to him because he was probably just as scared. He didn't know. He didn't. And I know deep down in his heart, he didn't want something bad to happen or something to pop off. Right. Yep. But it could have if I didn't have the experience that I did.
Well, and once again, you are advancing empathy. But you, when you show up, what you're just saying right there, how you're showing up, you got a divorce going on, there may be other things going on in your life, and now you're in a situation with someone who either does not understand or refuses to employ courtesy, maybe some kindness, even though he's involved in a bad situation. There has got to be, and what I'm hearing from you, which I really, really love what Blue Guardian Network's going to do, if you can show up and have that relatability, that empathy to say, hey, look, the first words, look, we're not here for trouble. How do we solve this? And if everything that you're saying says to me, there's resolution, it's plausible, it's doable, and it makes sense, so we should do it right away. So that said, I want to thank you so much for being on the program today, and I'd like to invite you back.
I'd love to. Thank you. We got a lot more to talk about. There's a lot. There's, and you know what? And thank you, Robert, for bringing this out, right? Because these are conversations that need to be had continuously.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not, it's not linear. It's dynamic. It's fluid. It's going to be constantly changing.
Yep. No, and Jonathan, so when you have a conversation, you've got to cut for commercial break and then bring on the next ice dancing championship. You're lost. Not that I have anything against ice dancing.
Fair enough.
I'm a little bottom heavy for some of those outfits, but hey, what the heck? Hey, enough. Jonathan, thanks again for being on.
Thank you.
I got a letter recently from a inmate at Northern State Prison who I know, John Dreyer. John has been incarcerated for going on almost 3 decades now. John has released a memorandum on prison addiction. I wanted to at least set the stage because there's so much wrong with incarceration, with jails, with why we lock people up, and why they keep going back. So that said, that's all we've got for this episode of Greater Good Radio. I really want to thank everybody for stopping by. And remember, go to www.greatergoodmediallc.com. Leave your comments. We want to hear from you. We get really some very interesting remarks from people, and I thank you so much for that. Listen, everybody, hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next Saturday on Greater Good Radio.